My name is Catherine Fogelman White. I am a fantasy author who loves dragons. I am here today because I am doing an interview for and with Ian Wilson, aka at the Great 8 Scott on Twitter. And he sent me a bunch of questions. He usually does a text interview, but I thought I would mix things up a little bit and do a video interview because I am a busy mother and sitting down and writing all of this out is a lot of work anymore. So here we go. Let's see what we come up with. All right, his first question is, tell us a little about yourself. Where are you from? Where do you live now? What did you want to be when you grew up? Oh. Well, I am from Oklahoma, Northwest Oklahoma. I still live in Northwest Oklahoma. I often question why. It's very dry and crusty and dusty, and we were the biggest issue in the dirty 30s, I think, and still kind of are. And so, yeah, I still live in Northwest Oklahoma. And what did you want to be when you grew up? Okay, well, that depends on which part of my life you were in at the time. So whenever I was little, I wanted to be Black Beauty when I grew up. So that didn't work out. But after that, I wanted to be a wild horse trainer. I wanted to train a Mustang, and I actually got to do that. Her name was Dottie. I only did one. And one is probably all I will ever do, because training a wild horse is a lot. And I went from taming her as a young weanling. She was a little older than that, maybe a year or two old anyway. But I tamed her. She was pretty wild. She was really wild when we got her. I tamed her, trained her, broke her in, and got her to where she was a really, really good little cow pony, and to this day regret selling her. I did all of that through my teen years as I was a teenager, and let that be a lesson to you kids. Just don't sell your first car and don't sell your first horse, because you will regret it every time. So, and I didn't learn my lesson from selling my horse, and I sold my first car, and that was also a mistake. Don't do it, kids. So after that, I wanted to be an author. I wanted to see my name on books. So that is what I have become. I have done that. So at least 2 of my 3 childhood dreams have been realized. I don't think I'll ever get to be Black Beauty though. So I have come to accept that now. His second question, what made you want to start writing? What motivates you to keep writing? Okay, so what made me want to start writing and what made me start writing was I was the oldest child of a large family. I was homeschooled. We lived out in the country, and if we weren't going out on a field trip or anything, we stayed home. And it was a lot of work to go out and travel and do anything. And so living out on a farm and everything, out in the middle of nowhere, and during a time whenever we really didn't have internet, we didn't have cell phones to play on, didn't have games, and my family couldn't afford a Nintendo or anything, we went outside and played. Or, if the weather was nasty, you stayed inside and read a book. And I got to where I had a very, very active imagination, and I had so many story ideas I was going to explode if I didn't start writing them down. So that's what I did. I needed to learn typing anyway on a real typewriter. And so I started typing out my stories and stuff. And that is what made me want to start writing and what got me to writing. What motivates you to keep writing? You know, I've got like a dopamine issue, and there's not a lot of dopamine in keeping up with something. I'm one of those people that I have an obsession for about a month, and it's the greatest thing ever, and then I don't have the obsession anymore, and I move on. So What motivates me to keep writing is really the fact that I'm already in it. I might as well keep up with it. Also, I am an entertainer. I love to entertain people. I love to tell stories. I call myself a master storyteller. And I can't tell stories effectively unless I write them down. So that is kind of how I chase the dopamine in that. That's how I keep writing, is I love to tell stories, and really good ones too. So that's how I keep writing. All right, his next question. What is your latest book about? Which one? Latest book. Latest published book, or latest book that I've been obsessing over or thinking about, or actually writing? We'll go with published. Latest published book would be Tales from Thack, a collection of short stories and novellas. I did that with several other authors. The lead author on that was F.P. Spirit. He's written the Heroes of Ravenford series. If you want to look him up on Twitter, he is at FP_Spirit. So, yeah, that would be the last one that I contributed to and have something published in. And the story I did in it is called Fortune Tellers, and it is about a shapeshifter finding her purpose. We'll put it that way. A shapeshifter finding her purpose. So, the last book of my own that I didn't co-author with anybody that I published is The Dragon Son, and it's book 2 in my series Tales of the Woven. I am currently rewriting the first book in that series, and I think there's a question where I will go into that later, why I'm kind of rewriting that. Let's just quickly say that I wrote that in my teen years, and it was good, but I know so much more about writing and storytelling now, I had to rewrite it. So, I'm currently rewriting the first book, which is The Dragon's Son. The Dragon's Dew is the second one. It was the last one that I have published. So, yeah. And it is about the main character, Keegan, and his dragon father, adopted father, rescuing a princess, basically. And learning that there is a greater power in control of a seemingly out of control world. So, all right, next question. When did you start writing originally? Not the specific book. Okay. Originally, I started writing whenever I was 10 years old, as I went into that earlier. I really got serious about the writing right before I graduated. So that would have been 2009. And because I wanted to have a completed book to show off at my graduation. And so I really cracked down and got serious about it then. And yeah. And 4 months before I graduated, I towards the end, I had started moving everything over to the computer and typing everything on Microsoft Word and everything. And 4 months away from graduation, the computer crashed and lost everything. 600 pages of a book. And I had to rewrite it all from memory 4 months before I graduated. So that's when my writing got really serious. Yeah, that was intense. So, would not really recommend that, but yeah, that's what happened. I ended up breaking those 600 pages into 2 books, so anyway, more than you needed to know, probably. All right. Next question. how did you come up with the idea for this book specifically? Okay, so I saw some scenes from Dragonheart, the movie, and I completely fell in love with the idea of a friendly dragon working with humans to achieve their goals. And it was completely new concept to me. So I loved that. I wanted a deeper relationship between the dragon and the human. And so I just started working on that. And I wanted that relationship to start as the human was a child. And so that's where the idea came from. And yeah, that's where it came from. And then this jerk called Christopher Paolini had the same idea, apparently, and made his books too, roughly around the same time. Got his published a lot earlier than I did, so I was so sad. I was also so excited too. I love those books. So anyway, that's how I came up with that idea. All right. What was it like writing your first book? Intense, I'll put it that way. It started out as very fun, and as I said earlier, I was doing it through my teen years, and I was doing it largely out of boredom. It was counting towards school since I was homeschooled. We could do that, and that was fun, and I just had a lot of fun learning how to do it and playing with the characters and the world and the story and everything. I just had a lot of fun. And then those last 4 months, it was intense, very intense. So, very exciting. We'll put it that way. It was exciting, very exciting. And then another question. If it's not your first book that you're talking about, how was this book different than any of your others? So we could apply that question to the anthology if we want to talk about some of my more recent work. The anthology Tales from Thack that I was involved in was very different from my other work because A, it was an anthology. I had not taken part in an anthology before. B, it was also not what I would call high fantasy. It was more epic fantasy, sword and sorcery, and a lot more humor. I put a lot more humor into that story, Fortune Tellers. I also wrote it from a first person's perspective, which is not normally what I do, and very different from what I normally do. It was a lot of fun. I don't think I will write in first person very often again, but it was fun and very energetic and fast paced and everything. So trying to make a good story with some depth to it, that was a lot of fun, but keep it short was also a challenge. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with that. All right, next question. How did you go about publishing your book? Would you do it that way again? Why or why not? Oh, so this is a story. Okay, so I finished my book before I graduated, but it wasn't until I was like 21 or so that I decided to go ahead and get it published. I wanted to see my name on a book cover. And I had lots of friends and family that wanted it too. And I could not print that myself because that was a big book. So I started looking at publishing companies. I got a big, giant, thick book. I can't remember even what that's called now. But you could, back in the day, get these big, thick books that were basically like directories for getting in contact with publishers. It was like a giant publisher phone book. And I started trying to send out query letters and stuff to these different publishers. The fantasy section on it was incredibly thin. There were not a lot of fantasy author publisher companies at the time. So I started sending out query letters. And what I found out was that I would get a rejection say, we cannot accept your query letter unless you have an agent. It's like, okay, so how do I get an agent? Well, you can't get an agent unless you've published something. How do I... Okay, well then let me publish something. Well, we can't accept your query letter or publish anything for you unless you have an agent. So how do I get an agent? You have to publish something. It was this big circular reasoning thing that I believe very much crushed the publishing industry at the time. And so I had pretty much almost given up. I was like, I can't publish anything, and I can't get an agent unless I publish something. So I'm stuck. I'm done for, or something. So I started looking for some different ways or different companies that might consider me. I started looking at some vanity publishers. I was like, okay, so I may have to pay $3,000 or something to get it at least just in some good binding. But, you know, at least then I would have something published and I could send to an agent and maybe get an agent. So, and then I met these two ladies at, y'all are gonna love this. I met these two ladies at the annual cow chip throwing championship competition in Beaver, Oklahoma. It is a very prestigious competition. If you don't know what a cow chip is, you should go Google that and look it up, and look up the cow chip contest in Beaver, Oklahoma, and maybe consider coming and throwing a cow chip. So anyway, I met these two wonderful ladies at this event, and they had booths. They were selling their books. They had self-published, and that was radical because I had never heard you either went through a publishing company or you vanity published and paid a ton of money. And they had not paid a ton of money. They had done it all by themselves on this place called Amazon. So, brand new at the time. And they told me, oh yeah, just go publish your book on Amazon. You can do it all yourself. It was free. And I get 70% of the royalties. I was like, okay, it's not trad publishing, but I'll do it. And so what I did is I made my own book of short stories, my own little anthology, which if you go to my website, www.catherinejfogelman.com, and sign up for my emails, you can get that book for free. Wink, wink, nod, nod. So anyway, I created this book of short stories that I published on KDP at the time. And I was like, okay, there, I've published a book. Now I can get an agent. I've published a book, you know. I thought this is my loophole. And then I got some sales on it. And it was pretty good sales. And I was like, wait a minute, hold on. And then I started looking at some of the publishing companies. I'm like, they only let me keep maybe about 15 to 20% of my royalties at the time. And I still have to market my own book? Because that was the thing. They could publish it, but then I would still have to do so much of the marketing myself. And I was like, okay, if I'm going to have to do the marketing myself, why not just avoid the headache of all of these stupid query letters and rejections and trying to get an agent, blah, 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 and just publish this myself, get it published, and be making money as I'm marketing it. And then if a trad publisher wants to pick it up later, cool. They can come pick it up later. So that's what I did. That's how I got into self-publishing. I have continued, thank you, computer, thank you. I have continued to self-publish since then, and I don't really see me going any other way. Again, I'm open to the idea if a trad publisher ever wants to pick me up and take my books themselves, we'll talk about it. But so many of them have like crazy contracts that would tie me to them, and I don't appreciate that. And a lot of them like to have control over how the series ends if you're doing a series and blah, 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 blah. So I don't see myself ever going trad. They just shot themselves in the foot and are not as good as self-publishing. Granted, self-publishing, definitely with Amazon, has its serious issues, but you know, they all have issues. They all have issues. We'll leave it at that. So, all right, next question. Are you planning on writing more? Yes. If so, what are you working on now? When is your next book going to be coming out? Okay. So as I stated earlier, I am currently working feverishly on getting rewrites done for my first book, and I plan to republish it by the end of this year, 2023. I'm going to get it done, y'all. I'm going to get it done. So that's what I'm working on right now. My next book after that, I plan to go ahead and clean up and do some small rewrites on my second book and just make sure it flows in line with the first book. And then I am going to work on the third book in the series and get it done. My goal is by 2025. That is my goal. So, I am also working on a book in another genre. I say another genre. I don't really know what genre this would be in. Maybe dark fantasy. That might be it. Or urban fantasy. I don't know. I'll have to research that. But my husband and I came up with this idea of a military contractor in present day who has a paranormal experience and tries to forget about it, but then ends up getting contracted by a unnamed organization that hires him or uses him to investigate or to accompany an investigator on paranormal and supernatural encounters. And basically, he's a paranormal supernatural monster hunter, put it that way. And he teams up with a pastor from, I can't remember, from Africa somewhere. I haven't gotten it all straightened out yet. But basically, this book is going to be a very Hellboy meets Constantine meets John Wayne and Jason Statham vibes, if that makes any sense to you. And so I am slowly working on that one. I don't know when it'll be out either. I hope maybe 2026 or something like that. So I wanted to play with something a little more modern in a slightly different genre. I can't completely steer away from fantasy because that's just who I am and I love writing that. So, but I wanted to have something to appeal to the people where I live locally who are all into westerns, mysteries, and thrillers. Louis L'Amour and John Grisham rule out here. So, anyway, that's what I'm working on. All right. Can you tell us about your other books? I think I just jumped the gun and did some of that. I do have some novellas planned with my primary series, the Tales of the Loveland series, that focuses on some of the backstories of some of the characters in that series. So those will be coming out at different times. Please ignore my guinea pig. I forgot to mention earlier that I have 3 fur babies. I have a service dog for the hearing impaired. I have a cat whose name is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And we have a guinea pig whose name is Samwise Gamgee, and he likes to remodel his house. So if you hear the gnawing and chewing, that's what's going on. Anyway, so moving on. What helps you to write? Music, pets, reading, specific pen, etc. Well, it's definitely not the pets. I'm talking to you, Piggy. Music. Music does help me a lot, especially kind of more ambient tavern music, since I write fantasy. That's kind of helps me get in the mood and the vibe, and especially like video game tavern music, like World of Warcraft tavern music helps me so much. Video game music is designed, especially some of their ambient zones music, stuff like that. Those are designed to help you to focus, and I find it really does help me focus a lot on my writing. So I do use that a lot. I do use some reading. Reading books, I find if I slack off, I have a harder time writing and getting into the writing zone. The more I read, the more my brain processes and gets fired up and wants to write things. So that does help me too. All right, next question. What has writing taught you? Wow, writing has taught me so much. So learning about writing, how to craft story and tell it in a way that gets a message across and appeals to the human brain has taught me so much about humanity. Just what makes us think, what makes us tick, how do we learn, and how does story impact us? Learning about writing has taught me so much about humanity. Also, writing has just taught me how to communicate more effectively and how to get thoughts and ideas and break down barriers, communication barriers even, or emotional barriers. I have learned how to be more effective in doing that and more gentle and thoughtful by writing and just really observing my writing and other people's writing. So yeah, writing has taught me so much. All right, what authors inspire you? Okay, I may be a little biased, just a little bit, but F.P. Spirit inspires me a lot. We are really good friends, so that is partially why I'm biased, and we've co-authored 3 books together now, but he really does inspire me to get out there and write more often, and get my stuff done and write really well. So I also have to say that Christopher Paolini with the Aragon book, I have to give him a little credit. He did inspire me. When his book came out and started getting popular, I was 15 at the time. I don't know. I can't remember. Anyway, but once I started learning more about his publishing story, definitely once I was closer to ready to publish my stuff, I found out he started out with the self-publishing route. So he inspired me to break away from the query letters and the agents and start looking for an alternative way to publish my book. And, that's what ended up leading me to having a conversation with the 2 awesome ladies who helped me get my books published. So, yeah, I have to give him a little credit there. I also have to give him some credit for inspiring me to write a even better relationship between a boy and his dragon. So, his was good, but mine is better. I'll put it that way. All right, next question. Do you go back and reread your writing after it's been completed? Yes. And that is how I got down the bunny trail of rewriting my entire first book. It was good writing, and sometimes, I sit there and I will reread even my current writing and go, wow, I surprised myself. This is really good. But that is ultimately how I got on the bunny trail of, ew, I need to rewrite this entire thing. Yep. We're just going to do that. It'll be real quick. It won't take any long. It won't take that long. It's no time at all. 6 years later, I'm about to finish up the rewrites on this book. All right, next question. What is your advice for writers? So the first bit of advice I would give is read more books. Just keep reading. Even if it's audiobooks, I know people kind of get a little grouchy about, that's not reading. It is reading. It does fire your brain like reading. Oral storytelling is the oldest form of storytelling we have on this planet, okay? If it's audiobooks, that's fine. It counts as reading. Just read more books. It helps fire up your brain. It helps fire up that storytelling, absorbing part of your brain. By absorbing someone else's story, it helps you better craft your own story. It helps improve your writing. So don't slack off on consuming other people's writing, other people's stories. Keep doing that. The other advice I would give, obviously, whenever you are ready to publish, don't stick yourself in a box. Your goal is to publish and have your name on a book cover. There are many paths to that goal. It's not just from you to the goal. There's many ways that you can get there. And whatever goal you have, whether that's publishing or writing or whatever, there are many ways to get there. Don't stick yourself in a box and say that there's only one way to get there. All right. Is there anything else you want to add? I can't think of anything. So other than, again, just a reminder that if you go to my website, KatherineJFogelman.com, I have free resources on there. I'm gonna go all William Shatner on you guys. So I have free resources available for writers and authors on there. I have writing tips and tricks and marketing advice and all sorts of stuff on there. Also, if you sign up for my emails, you get access to free books and giveaways, and also you get a copy of my very, very first book for free. And you get some helpful resources if you are a writer or published author on how to market your stuff. So, anyway, that's the only thing I would add. Thank you so much for joining me on this. And if you made it to the very end of my rambling, that is awesome. Thank you so much. Definitely be sure to follow Ian, the Great Scott. It's at the THE Great GR 8 Scott SCOT on Twitter. And just show him a little love. And be sure to share this with your friends and your family. And thank you. Again, thank you so much.